Back now with that massive sinkhole wreaking havoc in Florida over the weekend. 2 homes destroyed after the ground just opened up.
We have the first images from Florida of that cavernous sinkhole that swallowed a home.
Arguably, we know more about the moon's surface than we do about our oceans. However, a group of scientists and explorers with specialized diving expertise took it upon themselves to change this narrative. Equipped with the latest technology, they set out on a journey to explore a blue hole off the Gulf Coast of Florida. But the outcome of that trip turned out to be more than they had signed up for. What could have happened, and what did they end up discovering?
The Great Blue Hole is the largest and most famous ocean blue hole in the world.
Join us as we uncover what made marine researchers terrified after discovering sudden oceanic sinkholes near Florida. A mysterious deep blue hole in Florida. Off the coast of Florida, deep at the bottom of the ocean, are massive, bright blue holes that appear to glow from within. What the unexplored holes contain has remained largely a mystery. But now, scientists are determined to change that. Researchers recently flocked to a 425-foot deep blue hole off Florida's Gulf Coast in search of signs of life, among other things. The hole was dubbed Green Banana, and it was said to be located about 155 feet below the water's surface, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. NOAA said that there were many underwater sinkholes, springs, and caverns scattered across Florida's Gulf continental shelf, but they had no idea how many exist or where to find them. While they vary in size, shape, and depth, most are believed to host a large abundance of diverse plants and animals. A few years back, in May and September 2019, a team of scientists from Mote Marine Laboratory, Florida Atlantic University York Harbor Branch, Georgia Institute of Technology, and the U.S. Geological Society, with support from the NOAA Office of Ocean Exploration and Research, explored a 350-foot deep blue hole called Amberjack Hole, located about 30 miles off the coast of Sarasota, but that was just the beginning. After deploying divers and more than 600 pounds of equipment into Amberjack Hole, the team found carbon, nutrients, and microscopic life lurking inside. This discovery came as a shock to them because they were deep beneath the ocean floor and in such an area where light could barely touch. Life shouldn't be seen, but then it was. The team even discovered 2 dead, but still intact, small-toothed sawfish, an endangered species, at the bottom of the hole. Researchers were able to recover the remains of one of the 12-foot-long creatures for examination. Water samples collected by divers and the lander yielded microbes whose DNA was extracted, processed to isolate specific marker genes, and analyzed. Scientists found that the microbes in the hole were layered, with different genetic varieties at different relative abundances among the top, middle, and bottom layers of water. Next, they sequenced the full genomes of the microbes to gain a better understanding of the organisms. Analysis of collected samples also showed that the water and sediment in Amberjack Hole had huge amounts of dissolved inorganic carbon, which can support some kinds of life, including microbes. These microbes may play an important role in the global carbon cycle by returning carbon into the environment in a form that other organisms can access. The team was also able to document nutrient flux from the bottom sediment into the water, suggesting that nutrients are coming up from the blue hole, fueling primary production above the hole, and in turn, a whole cascade of larger organisms. And in turn, some carbon/nutrients ultimately cycle back to the sediments as detritus, fueling additional fluxes and restarting the positive feedback cycle. This could explain why blue holes support such a diversity of life. While much of the seafloor is a barren wasteland, blue holes offer an oasis of diverse marine life, including corals, sponges, mollusks, sea turtles, sharks, and more, NOAA said. But little is known about blue holes in general, due to their inaccessibility. Many are located hundreds of feet underwater, with relatively small openings. Beyond measuring the abundance of marine life, Scientists were also looking for answers about whether blue holes are connected to Florida's elaborate groundwater system, whether blue holes produce nutrients that affect their surrounding areas, and whether these habitats harbor microenvironments that bear undiscovered microbes. But it doesn't end there. Then, in the following years, in August 2020 and May 2021, the same team made plans to explore Green Banana, and that mission marked the most in-depth blue hole investigations ever conducted. Named after an unripe fruit spotted nearby when it was first discovered 50 years ago, the Green Banana is a scientific puzzle and potential prize that researchers are only starting to piece together. About 50 miles off the Sarasota coast, discovered in the 1970s by a passing boat, the Green Banana is what's called a blue hole, which is simply a huge cavern at the bottom of the ocean. Marty Watson, a volunteer, was asked to lead the first dive ever into the Green Banana, and the experience was what he called once-in-a-lifetime experience. Navigating old fishing lines, fish, sharks, and silt, Watson and his partner made the 20-minute dive down about 425 feet. The darker it got, the closer they seemed to get as they approached the blue hole. According to Watson, the experience was like no other, and he felt like he was going to the moon. The weightlessness, the black abyss, the entire feeling was indescribable, and to everyone's surprise, Watson seemed to have enjoyed the trip. They brought a benthic lander, a device specially designed to explore the seafloor, to the bottom with the help of a torpedo-looking water scooter. On their backs, they carried a highly computerized rebreather. A scrubber pulled out the CO2 and recycled the air through and at every depth. It made sure the oxygen was safe for them to breathe. This allowed them to dive for close to 4 to 5 hours, and in this space of time, repeatedly, they were able to not just explore the Green Banana, but also bring back samples for observation. Back in the lab in Fort Pierce, Beckler, part of the research team with Georgia Tech, National Oceanographic, U.S., the Geological Survey, and the Mote Marine Lab on the Gulf Coast, and their team started analyzing the data collected from the lander after their exploration. While it was too early to say what it meant, Beckler appeared thrilled by the discovery. He termed it the most exciting data he had captured in his entire career, and anyone could tell it was a major discovery. The data allowed him to be able to tell that the Green Banana appears to be a night owl, based on measurements of the salt level in the water. Right when nighttime comes, all of a sudden, relatively fresher water starts to come in, and it oscillates. That suggests that we have relatively fresh groundwater, at least that was connected to the aquifer coming up and diffusing up into the blue hole. Relatively fresh water in the Gulf, 50 miles away from shore. A discovery, but that's far from where it ends. World's deepest oceanic sinkhole, found by researchers. Researchers have discovered the deepest sinkhole known on Earth, located underwater near the border of Mexico and Belize. Previously believed to be the second deepest of its kind, the Tom Jaw Blue Hole, TJBH, is now recognized as the deepest known blue hole, with its bottom still uncharted. The Sancha Yongle Blue Hole in the South China Sea was thought for years to be the deepest in our ocean floor. However, a recent paper published in the journal Frontiers in Marine Science suggests that the TJBH plunges to at least 420 meters below sea level. Named Tom Jaw in Yucatec Maya, which translates to deep water, the blue hole has proven to be a challenging depth to measure precisely for the research team. The Tom Jaw Blue Hole is off the coast of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, close to where the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs struck 66 million years ago. Scientists have been studying coastal karst formations in Chetumal Bay, Mexico, southeast of the Yucatan Peninsula, focusing on these remarkable structures known as blue holes. One of these, the TJBH, was initially measured at approximately 274 meters deep using echo sounder mapping, establishing it as the second deepest blue hole in the world at the time. But here's where things started to get interesting. The use of echo sounders in complex environments such as blue holes presents challenges due to factors such as varying water density and cave shapes. Therefore, initial attempts to explore the TJBH's depth did not reach the bottom, necessitating further investigation. Recent measurements employing a CTD, which stands for conductivity, temperature, depth, profiler found depths exceeding 420 meters, confirming TJBH as the world's deepest known blue hole. The newly recorded depth amounts to just over a quarter mile below sea level into the mesopelagic zone, an area otherwise known as the Twilight Zone, since sunlight in this layer is significantly reduced. Blue holes may sound scary, but according to NOAA, each one can be an oasis in an otherwise barren seafloor. Blue holes are mainly just large marine sinkholes that lead into underground cave systems, typically found in the shallow coastal waters of the ocean, and are named for their striking deep blue color. They are formed from the erosion of rocks, usually being found in areas where the ocean bedrock is made of soluble material, such as limestone, marble, or gypsum. These formations are often of great interest to divers and scientists, because of their unique geological structures, diverse marine life, and the preserved fossils found within their depths. NOAA added that blue holes were just diverse biological communities full of marine life, including corals, sponges, mollusks, sea turtles, sharks, and more. There is also the fact that little is known about the areas because they are largely inaccessible and their distribution is widely unknown. However, it has been discovered that the opening of a blue hole can be several hundred feet underwater, and for many holes, the opening is too small for an automated submersible. The first reports of blue holes did not come from scientists or researchers, but came from fishermen and recreational divers. Now, the two groups are working together to conduct scientific surveys and exploration of these mysterious holes. Experts believe that the structure of this oceanic sinkhole could provide invaluable information about the Earth's geological processes. The sinkhole's formation is thought to be linked to the dissolution of carbonate rocks and may offer clues about regional geological history, including the impacts of past climate events. The discovery has ignited interest among environmental scientists and marine biologists, who are eager to explore its ecological implications, but that's not all. The unique conditions within deep sinkholes like the TJBH are often home to rare adapted species that provide insights into biodiversity and evolutionary adaptations. The science team also noted that the salinity of the water in the underwater sinkhole resembles that of the Caribbean Sea, which is located a few miles away, suggesting that the sinkhole and the sea might be connected via hidden underwater tunnels. Yes, those are a real thing, and no, sharks don't use it for travel. However, future expeditions are expected to explore its biological and geological features more thoroughly, potentially offering new understandings of our planet's hidden depths. This thorough research and implementation of underwater navigation technologies are essential to decipher its maximum depth and the possibilities of forming part of an interconnected system of caves and tunnels. Within the depths of TJBH could also lie a biodiversity to be explored and linked to physicochemical and geomorphological processes. Something similar was previously done in Belize, when a team of scientists conducted a series of measurements of the bottom of a big marine sinkhole, only to discover that it was filled with garbage and at least 2 dead bodies. Underwater sinkholes aren't a rarity. They're roughly circular, steep-walled depressions named for the contrast between the dark blue waters associated with greater depths and the lighter blue of the shallows surrounding said depressions. These sinkholes are mostly anoxic at greater depths, meaning they lack free oxygen, but are capable of supporting a large number of marine bacteria, and they excel at fossil preservation due to the lack of oxygen. While Tom Jah has officially become the deepest recognized underwater sinkhole, the largest overall is still the Great Blue Hole, which is a massive 300-meter wide and 125-meter deep underwater sinkhole located some 100 kilometers from the coast of Belize. With ocean exploration gaining more recognition and support in recent times, experts believe it is only a matter of time before these sinkholes are thoroughly accessible and better explored. Advancement in oceanic technology would lead to better exploration, which would in turn lead to the acquisition of materials that would help us understand oceanic sinkholes and the ocean floor better than we currently do. It would also allow ocean explorers to further investigate another astonishing aspect of the vast ocean: the Twilight Zone. Stay tuned, because this next part will leave you glued to your screens. The ocean's Twilight Zone. Beneath the surface of the ocean, where sunlight runs out, the Twilight Zone, a vast ecosystem teeming with life, begins. The Twilight Zone is a layer of the ocean spanning across the whole of Earth, beginning at 200 meters below the surface and ending at 1 kilometer down, where the pressure would be equivalent to 10 elephants standing on your head. The ocean's Twilight Zone is deep, dark, and, according to new research, iron deficient. No sunlight reaches this region 200 to 1,000 meters below the sea surface, where levels of iron, a key micronutrient, are so low that the growth of bacteria is restricted. To compensate, these bacteria produce molecules called siderophores, which help the bacteria scavenge trace amounts of iron from the surrounding seawater. An article detailing these unexpected findings from the Pacific Ocean was published this week in Nature magazine. The study could change the way scientists view microbial processes in the deep ocean and offer new insight into the ocean's capacity to absorb carbon. Understanding the organisms that facilitate carbon uptake in the ocean is important for understanding the impacts of climate change, said Tim Conway, Associate Professor of Chemical Oceanography at the USF College of Marine Science, who co-authored the recent study. He went on to add that when organic matter from the surface ocean descends to the deep ocean, it acts as a biological pump that removes carbon from the atmosphere and stores it in seawater and sediments, but there's still so much more we don't know about this zone. Measuring the rates and processes that influence this pump gives us insight into how and where the ocean stores carbon. Not only is the Twilight Zone full of marine life, but it is also crucial to how the ocean takes up and stores carbon dioxide from the atmosphere in a process known as the biological carbon pump. Without life in the ocean providing this pump, we think atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations could be 50% higher than they are even now. So, to further conduct the study, researchers collected water samples from the upper 1,000 meters of the water column during an expedition through the eastern Pacific Ocean from Alaska to Tahiti. However, what they found in the samples came as a huge surprise to them. Not only were concentrations of siderophores high in surface waters, where iron is expected to be deficient, but they were also elevated in waters between 200 and 400 meters deep, where nutrient and iron concentrations were thought to have little impact on the growth of bacteria. Conway went on to add that, unlike in surface waters, they had not expected to find siderophores in the ocean's Twilight Zone. The study shows that iron deficiency is high for bacteria living in this region throughout much of the eastern Pacific Ocean, and that the bacteria use siderophores to increase their uptake of iron. This has a knock-on effect on the biological carbon pump, because these bacteria are responsible for the breakdown of organic matter as it sinks through the Twilight Zone. The recent discovery was part of GEOTRACES, an international effort to provide high-quality data for the study of climate-driven changes in ocean biogeochemistry. In recent news, the study of siderophores was said to still be in the early stages with not much progress done so far. Researchers involved in geotraces have only recently developed reliable methods to measure these molecules in water samples, and they're still working to understand where and when microbes use siderophores to acquire iron. Although the research into siderophores is new, this study demonstrates their clear impact on the movement of nutrients in the ocean's Twilight Zone. Daniel Rapita, senior scientist at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and co-author of the article, wrote that for a full picture of how nutrients shape marine biogeochemical cycles, future studies would need to be conducted to take these findings into account. In other words, experiments near the surface must expand to include the Twilight Zone. A difficult area to study and often overlooked by science, new technology is aiding its exploration, forcing researchers to reevaluate just how much life is down there. Researchers now believe there is 10 times, maybe 100 times the biomass previously thought, says Heidi Sosik, senior scientist at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, WHOI. Now, this quest for knowledge has become a race against time. Some scientists fear commercial fishing operations could expand in this ecosystem, and small but abundant species could end up in fish oil, used in cosmetics and dietary supplements, or fish meal, used in aquaculture to feed species farmed for human consumption. Sosik explains that there are very basic things about the Twilight Zone that we just don't know, including the lifespan of some species, and how long it takes them to mature and reproduce. Without understanding life cycles, there is no way to know how species could be fished sustainably. The WHOI speculates that commercial fishing could upset the balance of the Twilight Zone's carbon pump, with knock-on effects for the climate. The organization says the economic value of more precise data could be worth hundreds of billions of dollars and help society make better decisions, a strong argument for more research. As most of the Twilight Zone exists outside of national jurisdiction, an international effort is underway to ensure good stewardship. The UN has backed a consortium known as JETZON, Joint Exploration of the Twilight Zone Ocean Network, to coordinate research, share technology and findings, and inform policymakers. The goal remains to explore the vast ocean and learn more about a large world under the world we live in. With ocean exploration reaching new heights with the aid of new technology, will the vast ocean eventually become within reach, or will it remain less accessible than outer space? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the next video. You will enjoy it.